now available in paperback and ebook. The Man Who Rules the World. John Hayes must bring together men and gods to overcome a threat that seeks to destroy the planet. The Man Who Rules the World. Now available in paperback and e-readers everywhere. There's this contingent of Negroes online who have decided to go over to change.org and put together a petition asking Disney to donate 25% of the profits from the Black Panther movie to the black community. And I look at that petition and it shows me how completely clueless most of these Afro American Negroes are as related to economics and how completely clueless they are as related to business. Now, these Negroes coming together in the frenzy for this Black Panther movie and writing this petition on change.org shows that most of these Negroes are coming from a position of weakness as related to economics. Now, when it comes down to this black community as related to this Black Panther movie, the black community has always been one step behind the white community ever since this movie was announced. Now, when this movie was announced, the whole economic plan of most of these Negroes was based on emotion, and all they were doing was sitting there anticipating buying tickets for this movie, but not coming up with a comprehensive plan on how they were going to make this movie make money for them. Now, any other creator out there who understands economic and business like I do, they're going to come up with a plan to make that announcement make money for them. Because I look at how J.K. Rowling and E.L. James made money for themselves when their movies for the Harry Potter franchise were announced and the 50 Shades franchise were announced, and I don't see any sort of planning or strategy like that being implemented in the black community, because there was a way black people could have made this Black Panther movie make money for them with that announcement. Because if they went out here when this movie was announced and decided to go out of their way to promote African American fantasy and science fiction by black authors like myself, what would have happened was money would have flowed back into the black community. But as it stands right now, 97% of black dollars are flowing out of black people's hands into white-owned Disney's hands, and all that money is used to pay royalties to people like Stan Lee, who are going to sit on a stack of black dollars, and Disney's going to make money at black people's expense, and black people are just going to sit there at the end of the day just being entertained by a movie but not being economically enriched. And the reason why most of these Negroes are going to be entertained and not enriched is because, again, they put themselves in a secondary position. And the whole thing with the Negroes' big problem is whenever it comes down to white owned properties, they're always putting themselves in a second best position economically. Any other community, again, would be out here with an economic plan to make money for themselves from this announcement. They'll be sitting there thinking of ways to get licensing deals for products, or they would be thinking of ways to make money from other sorts of deals where they're selling products to make money to profit themselves. But the Negro is too short sighted to think that way. In his mind, he's got this covert contract up where he will go see the Black Panther movie, and then after Disney has made all of its money on the Black Panther movie on the black community, what he's going to do is he's going to start talking about we need to sell African American fantasy and science fiction so we can do it then. No, that's not the time when you go out here and start talking about making money by selling your own products. When you put your own products in a second best position, guess what? The people in your community put them in a second best position. This is the big problem with most of these Negroes, is that they don't think about black first. When they announced that Black Panther movie, we should have been thinking black first. And in a black first mindset, the whole plan would be we're going to promote our African American fantasy and science fiction. Or as the year goes by and this film is being made, we're going to be promoting our black science fiction and fantasy and our black comic books by black comic creators to give kids an awareness of our characters and our stories. And we're going to do that as the anticipation builds up for this movie so that kids can get a better understanding of black heroes from a black perspective, black history from a black perspective, and open up the imagination of black people to see black first as we imagine ourselves in the future, in the past, and in other worlds. That's the whole comprehensive plan of black people who put black first. When people put black first, they are going to go and think about ways of enriching the people in their community so that those dollars can flow back to their community so it can be reinvested in things like hiring other black people. That's something I would have done if I were to get one of my properties up, is make efforts to try to reinvest that money in the community so that my books are featured in black schools and that black people like black artists can go out here and get work doing things like designing covers or doing editing so that that money can turn over in the black community and enrich others in the black community. But many of these Negroes are not as forward thinking as I am. Most of them are just so caught up in their emotions because they're so desperately starved for attention from white people that the announcement of the Black Panther movie, all that did was get them riled up in their emotions because they thought, oh, this is going to lead to me getting attention and approval from a white person. And if I go out and support this movie, more white people will make more movies featuring black actors. And they're sitting there saying, thinking, all they're thinking about is the black actors and the black director. And that's a short sighted perspective as related to black economics. When you have a bigger understanding of the bigger picture as related to black economics, what you're going to do again is think black first, and you're going to be thinking about trying to get not only the books of guys like me up there, but you're going to think about other artists, other writers, and get their works in places so that people can see their works and you can get a broader picture of African American fantasy and science fiction out there, and you can get more African American comic books out there and put more other black creators out there to get more exposure so that the black community overall is getting enriched and not just a handful of black folks at the top, which is what's happening right now. A handful of black people like your Michael B. Jordans, your Chadwick Bosemans, and your Ryan Cooglers, yeah, they're going to make a bunch of money on Black Panther. But the other black creators, they have been marginalized and ignored in this whole process. And while this whole process is going on, we've got this handful of Negroes going out here writing a change.org petition talking about how they want to get 25% of the profits off this movie when they should actually have been out there doing the work of helping to get African American fantasy and science fiction reaching a larger audience. Because you sitting there coming there with this change.org petition talking about asking from the 25% of the profits for a Black Panther movie, that's coming from a position of weakness. It's coming from the position of a beggar. And no one respects someone when they come from the position of a beggar. Because when a person comes from the position of a beggar, they're telling everyone that they are pathetic, they have no worth, they have no value, and they have to accept crumbs from the table of all these individuals. And those people are looking at that person and they're looking at them from a position of pity and shaking their head. And when you have Negroes out here and they're sitting there coming up with a change.org petition asking Disney for 25% of the profits off a Black Panther movie, that is the height of patheticness. It shows that no one needs to take anyone in this Afro-American Negro community seriously, because if you have to beg for crumbs, then why should somebody give you a place at the table and a plate full of food? Because if you're content getting crumbs, then you don't deserve to come up to the table. If people want to be taken seriously, they're going to do, again, like J.K. Rowling and E.L. James, and have a comprehensive plan to get their products in the hands of readers. When they hear that Black Panther movie is being announced, they're not worried about the Black Panther because they know the Black Panther is a white-owned property. Their goal is to do what I'm doing and try to get black people to read black properties so that we can enrich our own community and make money on this whole announcement by using it as a platform to get more African Americans aware of African American fantasy and African American science fiction and African American comic books by African American creators. Because when you have people who are out here aware of these products, they're going to go buy these products. And when they buy these products, guess what? The money flows back into the black community. And instead of us begging Disney for crumbs from the table, we will have our own table with our own food on that table, because we are feeding ourselves and we are enriching ourselves. And that's all part of the whole concept of Ujamaa, which was called group economics. Unfortunately, as related to this Black Panther movie, I don't see many people out here focused on group economics. All I see is a bunch of people caught up in their emotions, caught up in their feelings, and so desperate to see a black image on a white person's screen that they're not thinking about how this is going to affect the black community at the end of the day. Any smart black person would be sitting there thinking, hey, we need to use this as a platform to get more people to go out here and buy black products from black-owned businesses so that black dollars can stay in the black community, because in most cases, 97% of black dollars go out of the black community to companies like Disney, and because it goes out, nothing comes in. And what happens is, this is why we have Negroes out here putting up change.org petitions instead of coming up with economic plans to make sure that black dollars stay in the black community. Black children are reading black fantasy by black creators, and black people are looking at images and media created by us, for us, and making sure that our money continues to flow so that those black creators can go out of their way to make more products for us and people all over the world, so they can get an understanding of what real black fantasy and science fiction are, so that we won't just be codependent on images of a Wakanda based on the imaginations of two Jewish white men, but we're seeing a world we create of our own, from our own, and from our own imaginations, and also making sure that we're making these images for ourselves so that others can get inspired by them and from them. And we're also do this because it's something we need to do. And what I'm seeing from most black people who sit there and make a change.org and sit there and think that this is going to lead to change, no, that's not going to lead to change. What's going to lead to change is all of us getting up and going out and supporting those black comic creators, those black fantasy writers, those black science fiction writers, because that's the only way we're going to be able to move forward from this point. Unfortunately, most black people still put themselves in a second best position instead of focusing on black first. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct fantasy titles like the Isis series, the Eastern series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com, where you can purchase paperbacks and ebooks. And if you want to help me pay for the SJS Direct 2018's catalog's book covers, you may do so by donating to my Patreon. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Bride of Dracula. The Goddess Next Door and John Haynes team up to take on the Dark Vampire in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Bride of Dracula in paperback and